Hi everyone, I'm back with my part 2 of my current manga collection. So between the time when I uploaded my first video, I had about 150 volumes, but I kept shopping, as we do, and so I'm actually almost to about 190. So this video might be a bit longer, but I'll try not to talk too much. So actually, let's just get right into it. So the first series is a shoujo Hatsu Haru, published by Yen Press, and the mangaka is Shizuki Fujisawa. It's a completed series, but I only picked up volume 1 because I saw the cover, thought it was cute, and I also wanted to get the free shipping on Right Stuff with my order, so I just threw this in my cart. It caught my attention, all the covers, so I thought, why not? I haven't read it yet because I just got it in the mail yesterday, but the summary on my anime list says that it's about these two main characters, Kai, and who I'm assuming is on this cover, who's a bit of a playboy, and Riko, who's a tough tomboy, as you can see here, which I'm assuming this is her. But you put them together in a high school setting where love is involved and you get a shoujo. I mean, what else is new, right? With what I'm assuming, this series will be like an opposites attract kind of scenario between the characters, but like with other shoujo readers, we kind of eat this stuff up, and I'm not sorry. I'm not sure if I'm going to be picking up the entire series for this, so we'll just see how I feel after this first volume. Next series is the one that got me started again with manga collecting, and that's Horimiya, also published by Yen Press. The mangakas are Daisuke Hagiwara, who had done the art, and Hiro, who wrote the story. So this series to me is peak slice of life. When I saw the anime, which is what introduced me to the studio Cloverworks and made me really love the quality of their animations, I got hooked. I read the fan scanlations online because I wanted more, and eventually bought all the available volumes. It centers around Hori and Miyamura, who are classmates and have polar opposite personalities. So Hori is this popular girl who wears makeup, does her hair, but at home is just your everyday girl who has to take on a lot of responsibilities because her parents are busy working. And then Miyamura, who's our main guy, is seen to be this gloomy, quiet, and assumed to be an otaku at school. But outside of there, he actually has a lot of piercings and tattoos and is actually really reliable. They encounter each other outside of school by accident and discover these different sides to them. Romance begins, and the rest is history. And honestly, so was my wallet because I really love this couple. They're so cute. I bought the manga full price because, you know, I didn't know any better at the time. And I got all the extra volumes, like the 10.5, page 100 in the graduation memorial art book, which I think I'll show like all my art books in a separate video. But I'm obsessed with this manga art style, as well as in the anime series. So I highly recommend either watching it or reading it. Although, fair warning, if you do read this manga, it may seem like it drags towards the end because, like I said, it's slice of life, and sometimes it's just Hori and Miyamura, or any of the many side characters that I'm showing as I cycle through these manga covers, doing kind of mundane things. So I'm actually still waiting for the release date announcement of the final volume 16. But I do have all the other volumes here. So this is volume 12. I mean, if Yen Press could go ahead and let us know when volume 16 will be released, I would be a very happy person. But as of right now, I believe volume 16 in Japan was released middle of last year. So who knows when volume 16 will come out, but I just need that last volume to complete my collection. So that's Horimiya. Next one is I Want to Eat Your Pancreas. This one is a heart-wrenching short series at 2 volumes in this omnibus edition, published by 7 Seas. Irimi Kirihara had done the art, and Yoru Sumino had written the story. I was hesitant about picking this up because, I mean, I saw the title and thought, what the heck? I want to eat your pancreas? That made no sense to me. I thought it was maybe one of those weirdly long isekai titles, but I'm honestly so glad that I got it because it's a really deep and impactful story that made me cry while reading it, after which I watched the movie and I still cried again. So it centers around Sakura and her classmate who happens to read her diary by accident at the hospital because he was trying to find its owner. He ends up finding out that she's sick, but she wants him to keep it a secret. Her family obviously knows that she's sick, but other than that, it's just our main protagonist. So they develop a friendship, more so because of Sakura's doing, and the story just goes from there. It really gets into what it means to make and have meaningful connections and friendships and how precious time is with each other. So like this spread is just beautiful, and honestly the art is so endearing. I just loved reading it the entire time. So if you're looking for something incredibly emotional and touching, please pick this up. I can't recommend it enough. This next one is more lighthearted, and that's Laid Back Camp, published by Yen Press. The mangaka is Afro. I haven't started reading this one yet, but I hear it's a super cozy series, and I'm looking forward to reading this maybe on the weekend and casually just going through it. It's an ongoing series, but I only have volumes 1 to 5 for now. But from what I understand, it's basically about these two characters, Rin and Nadeshiko, as they go camping and the adventures that they face. So I'm not a camper, I don't go camping in real life, but why not live vicariously through these characters and learn through a manga, right? So the character designs are super cute, and I've seen figures of them in their camping scenes, and I actually pre-ordered an Nendoroid of Nadeshiko because, I'm weak-willed and I couldn't help myself. So if you're thinking about picking up a cozy series, maybe think about this one. I know a lot of people recommend it. Like, this is just too cute. It's like they're in a clown car. I'm excited to pick this one up. Next is a shoujo series I'm incredibly obsessed with at the moment, and it's Living Room Matsunaga-san by Keiko Iwashita. This is published by Kodansha and is a cohabitation manga. Our main character is Miko, who moves into her uncle's boarding house and gets to know the other tenants, particularly Matsunaga-san, who is often found, in the living room. Cringe. There is an age gap between the main couple, but it's pretty respectful and handled in a responsible way. The personalities of the characters are so lovable and hilarious. It's an 11-volume series with 10 and 11 up for pre-order, so I currently have up to volume 9. But before I had received volume 8 and 9, after I finished reading volume 7, I was like, oh my god, I need to know what happens next. So I ended up reading whatever I could find in terms of scanlations and what was available, and it's actually pretty funny because the morning after, I ended up receiving volume 8 and 9. So here's volume 8 and volume 9. And I did reread these, so it turned out fine. But there's no real huge overarching plot, except how Miko's relationship develops with all the other tenants. But honestly, it's everything that I look for in a shoujo. Because the characters are designed really great, the art is amazing, the humor, the maturity, in the sense that the misunderstandings and drama are kept to a minimum and they get resolved right away. So if you're a shoujo reader and you haven't read this or picked it up, I highly suggest that you do now. I really love this series. Continuing with another shoujo manga, Love in Focus by Yoko Nogiri, published by Kodansha in this hefty 3-in-1 omnibus edition. I recently finished reading it, It has a love triangle between these three characters with the theme of photography as the plot driver. It's also a cohabitation manga where Mako moves into a boarding house that has other high school students, including her childhood friend Kei. Everyone in that house either loves photography or is involved in the hobby in some way, so it intrigues Mako when she encounters Amemura, who shies away from the camera. Honestly, there's really not much to this series. Cute dog. I suppose if you just want another shoujo to read, this is an option. I was hesitant about picking this up, but you know, I figured something nice and easy to read would be cool, so this is Love and Focus. Do I even have anything else in here that isn't a shoujo? This next one is Lovesick Ellie by Fujimomo, also published by Kodansha. It's a completed series, but just started to get an English release, so there's only one volume available right now. I did read this when I got it in the mail, and it centers around Eriko, or Ellie, who sort of lives out a fantasy between herself and Akira, one of her classmates, via a Twitter account. Akira is this super popular boy in school, but has a pretty nasty attitude when he's not being fawned all over. So Akira finds out about her Twitter account, as you can see here, and funnily enough decides to play along. Whether he's just playing along or probably will end up liking her, we'll see. But I mean, who are we kidding? It's a romance shoujo. I think we can guess some of the plot points. It felt kind of weird reading what Ellie was tweeting, that I was hesitant about getting the second volume. But the way that this first volume ended kind of made me curious, so I'll think about pre-ordering volume 2. This next series is no surprise to anyone, and it's Kaicho wa Maid-sama by Hiro Fujiwara. This is published by Viz Shoujo Beat. And Viz, can you just let me know when the rest of this series is going to be available in print? As you can see, I only have the 3rd and 4th omnibus edition of the series, so it's chronically been out of stock and so hard to find. But anyways, I've only watched this as an anime, and it's something that I consistently can rewatch or just play in the background while I did other things. I really love this series, and I'm actually really wondering how I never even considered to get the manga until recently. So as I said, I only have 2 of the 9 omnibus volumes, and I actually ordered the rest even though they're out of stock. So honestly, it's a waiting game at this point. But it centers around Misaki, who's the class president of their high school that used to be an all-boys school. Misaki has a tough personality and attitude that tends to get on all the boys' cases while she tries to look out for her female classmates. Since there's not very many of them, it's a hilarious slice of life series, but it all starts to unravel for her when she's discovered by Usui, a super popular boy at school, while she's working at her job in, as you can see, a maid cafe. I only know what's happened in the anime, so I'm really curious how much farther the manga goes. So I'm really eager to read this, which may end up being next year or something if Viz can't reprint these fast enough, so who knows. But anyways, this isn't new to anybody. I'm sure you all know what Maid-sama is about. Taking a break from shoujo, this next one is Monster by Naoki Urasawa, published by Viz Sig. This is a seinen series that I haven't been able to start reading yet because I don't have volume 1 or 5 or 9. So this is volume 2. I try to avoid reading anything about this series because it is a mystery. But I did read the summary on my anime list, and I seriously hope that the summary was not a major spoiler. Like, I hope the summary just scratched the surface of what this series is about. But since I haven't read it, and I also don't want to spoil anything for all of you based on what I do know, I won't be talking about it, but I'll just say that I'm really looking forward to starting this series course, most likely binging it, especially because it's a mystery, whenever I'm able to get a hold of volume 1. So I do enjoy mystery and true crime, so I know all of it, and you know, even though it's an older manga series and not a shoujo, but I know a lot of people do recommend this series. And actually the cool thing about these perfect omnibus editions is that when you have all the volumes and you put them together, they sort of make this wall of portraits. So I'm pretty excited to complete my collection. Next is Moriarty, published by Viz Shonen Jump. Hikaru Miyoshi does the art, and Ryosuke Takeuchi writes the story. This is another series that I haven't been able to start reading yet because I'm missing volume 1 and 3, but I do have all the other available volumes that have been released so far. It's another mystery series that I'm looking forward to reading. It centers around Moriarty, who I believe is on cover 1, who's the antagonist of the Sherlock Holmes stories, and I believe this is Sherlock Holmes on this cover, and on this one I believe this is Watson. But I really do love this era and the aesthetic. I believe it's about Moriarty's pursuit against the sort of class hierarchical system and how he may or may not succumb to the evils behind corruption. So I'm really interested if this has more of a villain perspective approach to the storytelling, and if the plot is sort of headed that way, but we'll see. I mean, whenever volume 1 becomes available, which seems to be a common theme in my manga collection journey, the struggles of getting volume 1s. Next series is My Dress-Up Darling by Shinichi Fukuda, published by Square Enix. This is an ongoing manga which actually just started its anime adaptation at the beginning of the year. I do have all 4 volumes that have been released so far, and I've read this first volume. It centers around Gojo, who comes from a family that makes Hina dolls, as you can see in that first panel. So he grew up surrounded by the tradition of doll making and naturally took an interest in that skill despite being very different than what a stereotypical high school boy might be into. So he finds himself without friends until he encounters Kitagawa, who really just wants to cosplay as her favorite anime and video game characters. This is kind of like Inception or something, where a manga character cosplays as a character from a video game. So the two characters are quite polar opposites to each other, but come together, which makes this a pretty fun read because Gojo starts making Kitagawa's cosplays since she can't really sew. So this is actually noted as a mature read, and actually the second volume has plastic wrap. But after seeing the trailer for the anime, which I'm pretty excited to watch because it's done by Cloverworks, I decided I wanted to try reading the manga, which I learned that there was a lot of research that went into understanding the culture behind cosplaying, so I thought that was pretty cool. Next series is a super popular one, and that's Jujutsu Kaisen by Gege Akutami. This one's published by Viz Shonen Jump, and I have almost all 15 volumes released so far, except volume 2. Volume 2 was in stock at the time that I ordered it, but it was also stolen with my Grand Blue Dreaming volumes that I'm missing, so I'm actually just waiting for it to come back in stock so I can be sent my replacement copy. So I actually haven't started reading the manga yet, but I binge watched the anime episodes during the holidays and really came to love it. Along with Cloverworks, MAPPA Studio is just something else. Anyways, the series centers around these group of sorcerers who are on the hunt to exterminate curses that are personified by these supernatural monsters. Yuji, who was on cover 1, our main protagonist, starts off as a regular high school student that has a run-in with Megumi, who's actually on cover 2, who's one of those sorcerers. And at the spur of the moment in the middle of battle over a mummified finger of Sukuna, who's this incredibly powerful cursed being, Yuji eats the finger. And of course, in Shonen Jump fashion, he survives this sort of transformation, becoming a curse himself and essentially a vessel for a newly awakened Sukuna. So Yuji joins the effort in hunting curses and locating Sukuna's remaining fingers before any other curse does, while knowing that he'll eventually be facing his own judgment day. So I must say that I actually love this series more than some other Shonen Jump series out there, and I'm not gonna say which one, but just from the anime perspective and the storytelling, I can't wait to find out what happens in the manga, because who knows when the next season for the anime is going to be released. So I'm kind of eager to know more. And this is the most recent released volume 14. Next is one that was a little bit of an emotional read for me, and that was Orange by Ichigo Takano, published by Seven Seas. It has these 2 omnibus editions with a single final volume, so that was one. This is the second, and this one is the final volume called Future. I have read these volumes, and it centers around Naho, who receives a letter one day from herself marked 10 years in the future. She's skeptical at first, but once she starts seeing things described in the letter come true, realizes the urgency of what's noted in them and their connection to Kakeru, one of the boys in her group of friends. The letter points to regrets her future self has, so the series explores Naho as she navigates the impact of her present choices, or if she alters them, and ultimately the future. There are specific scenes in this manga that did make me cry and was just heart-wrenching, but sometimes it does get a bit frustrating because, when characters know they need to do something or say something, but they don't do it. And as a reader, you're thinking, if they just communicated or said this or that, we kind of avoid all of these misconceptions or issues. That can happen quite often, particularly with Naho. But overall, I really did enjoy reading this series. Like I said, if anything is able to make me emotional, which this did make me cry a couple times, then it's an automatic plus for me. But I did want to ask, did anyone catch in the author's notes that the 3rd volume wasn't going to be the final volume? Let me know if you know anything about it, because I couldn't find anything more online and assume it never happened or that it's never going to happen. So let me know. Next is a Josei series, Paradise Kiss by Ai Yazawa, published by Vertical in this huge 5-in-1 20th anniversary edition volume. I legit had to back up in order to show this. I have not started reading this one yet, but I know everyone raves about Ai Yazawa's works, and I'm honestly super behind with the classics, so please don't come after me for not having read this or seen the anime or anything. But similar to Blue Period, where the main character is pursuing a creative passion and trying to figure out their life, I do get that sense from Paradise Kiss, except this one is fashion-based. I'm sure there's nuances and differences in how this series approaches the journey of growing up. And so I believe the main character is pulled into the whirlwind that is the fashion industry, and it's about how she navigates the whole scene and the people involved while learning more about herself and how she fits in that world. So this art style is pretty different from what I normally will gravitate towards, but it's no less amazing. So I'm still really looking forward to seeing what this one's all about. This one is a super short volume, Ride Your Wave by Machi Kiachi, published by Seven Seas. I think I read this literally in one short sitting. It's a romance drama with a bit of fantasy, which the fantasy did catch me off guard. It centers around Hinako, who's a surfer, and Minato, who's a firefighter. Minato encounters Hinako while putting out a fire in her building, and then they continue seeing each other, and he eventually takes an interest in learning how to surf. It's all very quick since, as you can see, it's a very short volume. The tragedy and drama aspect of this is quite sudden, and I'll just give my impression now. I honestly couldn't get invested in the couple and the story because it felt too rushed to me, and maybe because it's so short, it's like I wanted to feel something but I couldn't. It's not like I can't, since as I said, I cried many times with I Want to Eat Your Pancreas, but that was a bit longer, so I think this story would have benefited from being a little bit longer for some character development. But I haven't watched the movie. I know there is one, so I don't know, maybe I will actually like the story better in the movie format. This next series needs no introduction, and that's Spy Family by Tatsuya Endo, published by Viz Shonen Jump. When I say everyone, literally everyone has this in their collection, and it's no surprise. I originally started reading this through Scanalations, and I binge-read all the available chapters at a time. Then I bought all the physical copies because I had to. I honestly really love this art and how dynamic it is. I laugh so much with this series. It's incredibly wholesome and lighthearted while still having its deep and sentimental moments too. So this is the most recent available volume, Volume 6. And on the backside of Volume 1, so we have Twilight, who's our main protagonist. He's a spy and has to put together this fake family in order to accomplish a mission. So he adopts Anya, who happens to be a telepath and can hear everyone's thoughts. And part of the mission, he needs to put together a family, so he brings in Yor as the fake mother, who actually happens to double as an assassin. So they don't know what's going on with each other behind the scenes, but Anya does. So everyone has their own missions that they're trying to accomplish. Meanwhile, Anya just wants to be in a family. And my heart just melts thinking about it. So if you haven't started reading this already, I'm not sure what you're doing, but it's incredibly amazing. I love this first spread. And then with the anime coming out in April, I'm even more excited. I feel like I've declared my immense love for the Studio Cloverworks so many times, but it doesn't hurt to say it one more time, because the trailer for Spy Family looks freaking amazing. And then with Cloverworks collabing with Wit Studio, are you kidding me? I just can't. It's the dream. So anyways, you're missing out if you haven't picked this up already. Next is Sweetness and Lightning by Gido Amagakure, published by Kodansha. This was a random buy while I was at Barnes & Noble. I saw the cover and thought it was super cute, so I picked it up. I believe it's a finished series at 12 volumes, but I only have the one. It looked really wholesome with a father and young daughter, so then I read the synopsis and how the father had lost his wife and is just doing his best to raise his daughter himself. It looks like cooking is involved as a fun plot driver, and as the dad tries to, make the most out of life again. I've seen so many reviews about it, and honestly, I'm pretty glad I got it because it looks like another lighthearted series that delivers on the feels. So I'm not sure if I'm going to pick up the entire series, but we'll see as I read along. Next is The God's Lie. The mangaka is Kaori Ozaki, and it's published by Vertical. The cover is this really nice textured matte material. I was tempted to buy this in that same trip to Barnes & Noble, but wasn't sure if the story intrigued me enough. But then I saw the free shipping from the Penguin Random House website that I ordered a Blue Period volume from. So since they only have manga published by Kodansha on their website, I just threw this in there. From what I read, it's about the coming together of these two individuals who apparently ditch a soccer camp to hang out and discover a dark secret. like that's all I know. I don't want to spoil it for myself either, so I don't mind that I have nothing else to go by in terms of what it's about. But I have seen good reviews for this, so we'll see how and what exactly that dark secret is. The next book is actually a light novel, 3 Days of Happiness, written by Suguru Miyake, published by Yenon. I mistakenly thought this would be a manga omnibus edition because it was more expensive, and when I saw it online through Barnes & Noble. Turns out it's because it's a hardcover light novel. But I saw the manga version on my anime list and was super intrigued by the summary. I have started reading it, as you can see, my little bookmark, but I'm still somewhat in the beginning. It centers around Kusunoki, who grew up thinking his life was going to amount to something great, but ends up finding at 20 years old, he's struggling financially and his whole living situation is far from ideal. While trying to find ways to make ends meet, he comes across an opportunity to sell either his lifespan, time, or health in exchange for money. He ends up selling majority of his lifespan, but at what cost? So this is another deep story that I'm excited to keep reading. That whole summary was not a spoiler. I mean, it's on the cover jacket. So, but I really enjoy reading these kind of philosophical journeys because I tend to evaluate my own life, and it makes me think about the time that I have and how I'm spending it. So if you enjoy that as well, maybe think about giving this one a read. Next is Wake Up Sleeping Beauty by Megumi Morino, published by Kodansha. I am currently on volume 3, and let me just say that this series was not what I was expecting. The first volume felt like whiplash, but not in a bad way, but because it had me thinking the story was going one way, but I'd be surprised because it ended up going in a different direction that I didn't even consider. So it centers around Tetsu, who takes on all sorts of jobs to earn money, and one of those jobs is being a housekeeper at this mansion. Turns out that there's a separate building on the lot where the mansion owner's daughter, Shizu, lives and is kept in isolation. I won't say any more about why that is, but I am enjoying reading it so far. The humor is quite fun, and I'm really curious to see how the two develop together and tackle the problems Shizu faces, as well as Tetsu's own reservations with himself. I don't have volume 4, and this is a short series at 6 total volumes, so this is volume 6. I hear volume 4 has been out of stock since forever, and that someone had been waiting for a year. That's pretty ridiculous and crazy, but I do see that Barnes & Noble is anticipating volume 4 being available sometime in April, so crossing fingers for all of us that are collecting this one. The last series in my collection so far is Wotakoi, Love is Hard for Otaku by Fujita, published by Kodansha. I have all 5 available omnibus editions so far, with the last volume up for pre-order, so I'll be getting that maybe in a few months. I haven't started reading this one yet, but I'm super excited because this one is a josei and centers around people in the workplace. I do have a full-time job, and I feel like I'll relate to this so much as someone who's, obviously an otaku. A while ago, I watched the first episode of the anime, but I never continued it for whatever reason. So I don't know, maybe I just didn't have time, but I'm sure in the future I will pick it up again. But from what I read online, it centers around Narumi, who loves anime, games, idols, the whole thing, but hides that side of her interests because of failed past relationships and the perceived notion that otakus are, creepy. After changing jobs, she encounters her childhood friend, who's also an otaku. They eventually begin dating, as these stories usually go. So I'm interested to see how much I'll relate to this because, my coworkers have no idea that I collect manga, that I watch anime, and all that. So the intersection of hobbies and work responsibilities will be fun to see portrayed in the story. That wraps up all the manga I currently have in my collection at the moment. I do have another series on its way, but since I don't have it yet, maybe I'll show it in a future manga organization video. So I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me while I chatted away. If after watching you have any manga recommendations for me, let me know in the comment section, or also let me know if you've checked out any of these series and which ones are your faves. I'd really appreciate it if you liked, subscribed, and I'll catch you in my next video. Take care.